Well, welcome back, everyone. The world was in a lot of danger before we left, and now it's even more so. Obviously, we are working very hard to come up with an agreement to improve our situation at the border. But it's also important to remember the world is literally at war. And I decided to just go over each of them in case anybody has forgotten. Not only did we have 300,000 people crossing the border in December alone, we've got wars that we all are familiar with in the Middle East and in Europe. Iran's proxies in Gaza, Lebanon, and Yemen attacking Israel. The Houthis actually attacking us directly, in addition to shutting down, where they can, commerce in the Red Sea. Iranian proxies attacking us, our soldiers, in Iraq and in Syria. Russia stepping up missile attacks in Ukraine while we were gone. And China, of course, watching all of this, concerned about next year's election in Taiwan. So make no mistake about it, this is the most serious international situation we have faced since the Berlin Wall came down. We need to pass a supplemental. There needs to be a strong border provision part of it, and I'm confident James Lankford is the best one to deal with this, and he's been, in addition to communicating with all of us during the holidays, consistently involved in this for quite some time. And our hope is that we'll get an outcome and get it soon. Obviously, we're going to have to pass a CR as well. I have no idea yet. It'll be up to the Speaker and the Majority Leader to determine the length of the CR.
We all know now that in the month of December, the Biden border crisis hit its absolute low point. And by low point, I mean the most ever people apprehended illegally trying to come across the southern border in the month of December. It was the worst month on record, and in December had the worst day on record. And now it's been 3 consecutive record years in terms of number of people apprehended. And of course, that does not count all the hundreds of thousands of gotaways that are also part of that illegal surge of illegal immigration at our southern border. As you know, we've had a lot of discussions around this for some time. We, back in November, had Senators Lankford, Cotton, and Tillis put forward a set of policy proposals to deal with the southern border. It honestly wasn't until until just recently, actually, December, that Democrats realized that we were serious and were willing to sit down and talk about it. But I don't think the American people have any confidence that the Democrats are going to be able to solve this. It's clear President Biden has the legal authority today. He could enforce our law at the southern border. He's chosen, in his administration, opted not to do it. And we have, as I said, a record number of people. In fact, if 300,000 in the month of December is pretty much equivalent to the 2017 entire year. There were about 300,000 in the entire year in 2017. We had that just in the month of December. And of course, we all know that represents not just people who are coming here for a better life, but people who figured out that the southern border is a portal to get into the United States, including record numbers of people on the terrorist watch list, convicted criminals, gang members, and clearly, obviously, a lot of cartels who are trying to use our southern border as a way to get drugs and human trafficking and weapons into this country. So it's got to be dealt with. It's got to be dealt with now, and it's got to be dealt with in the context of the national security package that is under consideration here in the Congress. So my hope would be that the Democrats will come to the conclusion that the only way you solve this problem is with serious, meaningful policy changes that reduce the flow and regain operational control of the southern border. Absent that, there is not going to be a package that passes here. So Senator Lankford is on the lead on this, as the leader pointed out, doing a great job, and our members stand united behind him in getting strong, meaningful, serious policy reforms that will get the southern border under control.
Well, there is only one word to describe what Joe Biden and the Democrats have done at the southern border, and that word is surrender. They have surrendered to the cartels, to the drug dealers, to the terror suspects. And this picture is from 3 weeks ago. The spigot is still wide open. All you need to do is turn on the evening news and you'll see people continuing to flood across the border. Families, communities, not safe, not secure because of this surrender. And it's a surrender to illegal immigrants coming from 150 different countries. 300,000 in the last month alone. Record-shattering numbers. Daily records, weekly records, monthly records, and a record for the entire year. But it's really no surprise when you think what they are being offered to come here illegally. Free entry, free plane flights, free hotel rooms. Well, maybe free to them, but the American taxpayers are paying for it, and the American taxpayers are fed up. Communities all across the country are being overwhelmed and overrun. And these illegal immigrants coming are bringing the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of Americans every single day. Democrats won't lift a finger to help. No. They want to just wave them all through. But Republicans want to stop them in their tracks and send them back. The way to do that is we have to stop the incentives, which continue to act like a magnet, bringing people here, and allow the Border Patrol to do their job, which is to enforce the law, to secure the border, and to keep the homeland safe.
I just returned from a delegation trip overseas, and the delegation and I traveled to Egypt, to Israel, to Qatar, and to Bahrain. And my mission with this delegation was clear. It was to use full congressional leverage to bring our American hostages home. Currently, we have 6 Americans that are being held in Gaza by Hamas. And we must remember that Hamas killed over 30 American citizens during their October 7th terror attacks in Israel. So our message was very clear to these leaders that they must work with the United States and Israel to bring these hostages home. We were able to visit Kibbutz Nir Oz, which was a kibbutz that I had visited in 2014, and it was a stark contrast from the first time I visited. A tranquil community filled with peace activists now is a barren wasteland with burned-out homes and the remnants of shards of glass, doors blown in by grenades and by RPGs. Folks, Americans were taken. They must come home, and every second matters.
Well, I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year and hope 2024 is good for all of us and for your families. The dispiriting thing about 2024 is we're back here for the first week, and Senator Schumer has chosen to make 2024 the first week the same as way we ended 2023, doing nothing of substance when we have so many weighty topics in front of us. Certainly, 302,000 at the border in December, the highest month ever, is something that we could be dealing with right now today if we could get cooperation. James Lankford is working hard and individually reaching out. I salute him and hope that he is successful. We are hoping for that. We have fentanyl streaming into this country. The border crisis is getting worse and worse. I thought to myself, why did we have the highest month in December? Because the cartels are paying attention, and they know that we as Republicans are taking a hard line on changing our immigration policies, and that's causing them to flood in before the gates close. And so I would also say the other thing in this new year that Senator Schumer could be dealing with as a member of the Appropriations Committee are our spending bills. We're running out of time. There's 2 dates to remember that Senator Collins reminded us at lunch. July 27th, the Appropriations Committee passed every single bill out of committee. The leader had time from that point on to consider any of those. We passed the first ones in June. November 1st was the date at which we passed the only 3 bills that we've passed. And we had another 2 months then to be considered. So he's not doing his job. He's not running the government on the spending front, really on any front, but the spending front most particularly to make sure that we get back to regular order, that we control our spending, that we try to rein it in, that we've been advocating for. So I'm here to say we should be focusing on these things instead of having votes being canceled like they are today because there's not enough people here. We should be focusing on the things, immigration and the supplemental and our spending bills.
In October, I took a trip to the southern border in McAllen, Texas, down to the Ursula Processing Center. And I was told by Border Patrol agents there were 3 Syrian men that had been apprehended the night before. They were there at the Ursula Processing Center. I asked to see them. Then I asked the question, how did they get here? I said, well, most likely they flew from the Middle East to somewhere in South America and then came up through Central America, through Mexico to our southern border. In December, I visited with leaders from the country of Colombia. They told me about a daily Turkish Airlines flight from Istanbul to Bogota. Go on kayak yourself, do a quick search. You can get a flight for $1,000 from Istanbul to Bogota. They've been tracking these flights and found that some of the passengers that arrive in Bogota are on the terror watch list. But this is how, one way, they're coming into our country, into South America, and then up through Central America, up through Mexico. Where are many of those passengers headed? They're headed to our southern border. They're headed into our country. I met with their Vice Minister of Defense of Colombia. He's deeply concerned that terrorists from the Middle East and Africa are using Colombia as a stop along their way to our southern border. If leaders in Colombia, leaders across the world are concerned about our wide open southern border, why isn't Joe Biden and the Senate Democrats sharing that same concern? Under President Trump, we had policies that discouraged, disincentivized people from coming across the southern border. President Biden and Senate Democrats have done nothing to fix this. They're complicit. They've only made it worse. It is time to make these policy changes. It's urgent. The time is now.
You had argued after voting to acquit the former president that presidents are not immune from prosecution. Is that still your view?
Well, my view of the presidential race is that I choose not to get involved in it and comment about any of the people running for the Republican nomination.
Mitch McConnell, thank you. You talk about the need for a CR. Explain operationally, despite there being a top line, how it's so challenging to get something done by the end of next week. But secondarily, and perhaps more importantly, are you and Speaker Johnson not aligned on this? I mean, he has said he doesn't want to do a CR. You say that's the only way out of this mess right now in the next week?
Well, they have a top-line agreement, Schumer and the Speaker. In the meantime, we need to prevent a government shutdown. And so the obvious question is, how long does the CR need to be? And that'll be up to the majority leader and the Speaker to determine the length of the CR. But the Senate, the simplest things take a week in the Senate. So I think frequently the House doesn't understand how long it takes to get something through the Senate. Alex?
In light of the anniversary of January 6th, is it accurate to characterize individuals convicted and incarcerated for January 6th related crimes, to characterize them as hostages? Is that accurate?
Well, let me say this about January 6th. I had remarks that I made on February 13th of 21 about how I felt about January 6th. I recently reread it. I stand by what I said.
Secretary Austin, do you believe he should resign? Leader McConnell?
That's kind of his news and story.
Yeah, that's right.
We've also been using a bite. Of course, I like this. It's not like you can feel it. It's not like that.
Playing this game. Maybe we should just stand up at the podium.
I want to make sure Brennan's in this.
they would criticize him no matter what.
Right region. You know, like, he's probably like, oh, wishing him the best. He should resign. I know. Well, there's something I saw about, they were saying that I'd like to procedure to, yeah, I guess it was, you have to have procedure. Or it's not. Yeah, I mean, I guess any surgeon's right to give an application. No, of course, I mean, and I don't, but, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You think that plastic surgery. coming to work here.
trying to do what? Video? I won't have over by what? Over by Oak Steakhouse? You mean, or what, by the train station? Julie, well, there's Joe Theismann's restaurant. Is that Julie? That's horrible. Yeah, that's not a steakhouse. It's a steakhouse. Yeah, or it's not a steakhouse, it's a sports bar. They have a lot, I mean, Joe Theismann, famously played for the Redskins. Now, what's this event with the speaker? They decided.
press conference? I'm assuming that they would let us know if it was tentative. The press team went in. Here they go. Heads up.
Okay. So, sorry about that. We had a very long and vigorous discussion, very respectful of everyone's view in our caucus. It was good. And I hope everyone had a nice holiday. And because we love you so much, we kept you here, so you might have to go home in the snowstorm. No, that's a joke. Terrible joke. Okay. I want to thank Senators Murray and Murphy and Smith for joining us. As 2024 kicks off, three things are true. First, a lot of work to do. We started with funding the government and working towards a national security supplemental. Second, only one way we'll get any of this done, bipartisan. Third, we're off to a good start. This weekend, I announced, along with congressional leadership and President Biden, a top-line agreement to keep the government funded and avoid a shutdown. Senator Murray, who you'll hear from shortly, and all the other appropriators will work doggedly to draft the appropriations. We have only 10 days until the first deadline. And the good news is I think all four appropriators, the four corners, Senator Murray, Senator Collins, Representative Granger, Representative DeLauro, want to get this done as fast as possible. Our goal is to roll up our sleeves and try to get this done, period. From the beginning, we had one goal in mind as Democrats. Keep the non-defense level at $772.7 billion. That's the exact number that we agreed to in June last year when we avoided default. That was our North Star. We have not cut one nickel from that, despite the hard right's desire to bully us and bully their own caucus into cutting the number way back, which would never have gotten a majority support in the House, let alone the Senate. We protected our vital priorities like housing programs, veterans benefits, health care, nutrition programs, small business support, and clean energy investments. We're very proud of that. Democrats said no to the draconian cuts. Democrats said no to rescissions that would hurt housing assistance for millions of Americans secured by Democrats and Biden. We said no to any changes that would alter the climate change benefits that we put into the IRA. We fought to keep the defense number identical to the NDAA. We did. And the agreement kept many of our priorities. Protected our accomplishments from the last Congress, and most importantly, will hopefully is the first step in avoiding a lengthy, costly government shutdown. There's much more to do. Agreeing to a top-line number is important, but so is the next step in Patty Murray's capable hands, and that is translating the number into 12 appropriations bills that can pass the Senate, pass the House, and reach the President's desk. But if House Republicans bend to the whims of the hard right and corrode the appropriations process with poison pills and extremist proposals, then they will be responsible for moving us closer to a shutdown. Hakeem and I have agreed, no poison pills, and that's enforceable because the House will need Democrats to pass any bill, and the Democrats there will say no poison pills. One final point. This 30 or so group of hard right people, they think they can bully everybody, threaten everybody. They don't represent the American people. They don't even represent a majority of Republicans. That's why they can't even pass appropriations bills over there. And we are going to stand firm and strong, insist on bipartisanship. No, we have to come to agreement with Republicans and get that done. Supplemental. Senate Democrats remain committed to working with our Republican colleagues on passing a national security supplemental. The negotiators have been hard at work. They worked through New Year's. They worked through the whole break. I must have talked to the administration, to Sinema, to Murphy, 5, 6, 7 times a day during the break. I tried to restrain myself on Christmas and only made one call. But we were working 24/7, because this is so difficult. We all know how difficult it is to deal with immigration. It hasn't been easy, but it's a matter of national urgency. And the word in these negotiations has been and must continue to be persistent. We're going to be persistent. And I am hopeful that we're going to get something meaningful done. We know that Congress has not acted on on immigration in a comprehensive way in decades, so it shouldn't surprise anyone it's going to take some time. Of all the difficult issues we face in the chamber, immigration is one of the most difficult. But regardless of how difficult it is, much hangs on our success. The world is watching how the U.S. responds. Our friends are watching. I read from some Ukrainian colonel or officer that for every one salvo he can fire, the Russians can fire 5 back. We cannot let Ukraine down, and that's why we are just going to be persistent and persistent and persistent till we get it done. As I said, I am more hopeful today than I've ever been. We are closer today to an agreement. We're not there yet. There are a few outstanding issues, but we're closer to agreement than we have ever been. That's all good news. Patty.
That's all good news, Patty. All right. After really months of needless delay caused by House Republicans going back on their word, we do now have a spending framework that ultimately maintains the overall funding levels Congress agreed to last year and allows us to finally get to work negotiating and passing bipartisan, bicameral funding bills. This is a critical step that lets us move forward, and we have no time to lose. I'm working with my colleagues in both chambers now to begin hammering out our final bills, and my staff and I will be working around the clock until we get this done. But make no mistake, negotiating final funding bills is no walk in the park. We are all working nonstop right now to get this done, but we are obviously crunched for time. It is obvious to anyone who's watched weeks and months go by as House Republicans insisted on renegotiating the very deal that they cut. And let's be clear, we will not be able to get any of our bills done if House Republicans insist on partisan poison pills that we all know are non-starters. So let me repeat, Democrats will not accept Republican poisonous pills, no changes, period. Every single decision we made in these bills has huge implications for our communities. We owe it to our constituents to treat this work seriously. That means not using a shutdown threat to push extreme partisan policies, and it means working together to avoid senseless and costly shutdowns and pass reasonable bills that help our constituents. So now that we have this agreement, I hope we can all work together quickly to keep this process on a productive bipartisan track. And I hope we keep that momentum going to address the other pressing challenges that Leader Schumer spoke to, getting aid to our allies and delivering critical humanitarian relief, addressing the child care crisis, and so much more. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. I apologize. I'm losing my voice. I'm here to report on my Christmas vacation with James Lankford and Kirsten Sinema. Listen, Senator Schumer's right. We are closer to an agreement than we have been since the beginning of these talks. I'll say what I've said before. I wish that we weren't in this position. I wish that Senate Republicans supported Ukraine aid because they believe in Ukraine. I wish that we weren't conditioning support for Ukraine upon the resolution of the most difficult issue in American politics, immigration reform. But we are where we are, and we are trying our best to get an agreement that gives the administration new tools to be able to better manage the border while living up to basic fundamental American values. And so we worked throughout the break. I'm thankful to both the leaders' team and also Senator McConnell's team for being a big part of those negotiations. We still have a handful of issues that are outstanding, but I was able to brief the Democratic caucus just now on some of the basics of the topics that are up for discussion. And I know that Senator Lankford is planning to do the same thing tomorrow with his caucus. I'll just finally say this. I think we are interested as Democrats in providing the administration with tools that will help better manage the border. We are not interested in taking away from the administration tools that they use today to help better manage the border. And so when we talk about this topic of parole, it is very important to understand that it is used today as a way that the administration is able to better manage the flow in a planful way of individuals to the border. I think we can bridge the differences that remain, but we are at the table in pursuit of a simple idea, living up to American values while presenting this administration and future administrations with better tools to be able to effectively manage the border, and hopefully we'll have good news to report to our colleagues and you all very soon.
Senator Smith.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everyone. I just want to reiterate a couple of things that my colleagues have said. The first is that passing this bipartisan budget agreement is the only responsible path forward for Congress. It is a strong bipartisan bill that mirrors what the House and the Senate passed earlier last year, and it needs to pass again as quickly as possible. And let's be clear about what these spending bills do. They cover the basic needs of Americans, such as nutrition assistance, veterans benefits, and they allow us to proceed with local projects that are extremely important to districts, red districts and blue districts all over the country. So I hope that our Republican colleagues, especially our Republican colleagues in the House, will cooperate in getting this done, and understanding that any attempt to include policy writers that do not have bipartisan support, these so-called poison pills, are a non-starter, and we shouldn't be wasting our time doing things that are not going to contribute to passing a bipartisan bill. And I also just want to take a moment to say that we cannot underestimate the consequences of a government shutdown, which would be felt by millions of Americans if that is what we come to, if we don't move with great speed. It is our job to think about those Americans, and it's also our jobs to think about federal employees and federal contract workers that work in every single state in this country, and what impact a federal shutdown would have on them when they lose their paychecks, including those contract workers who never get that money back again. It is also a very bad time. There's never a good time for a federal government shutdown, but this is a particularly bad time for a federal government shutdown as our allies around the country, around the world, are looking at us and wanting to build confidence in what this country and this government is able to do. So let's get this done. Let's get this done as quickly as possible. And before I go, I just want to make one announcement. I want to make sure that everybody knows that in December, I became the grandmother twice over of 2 children. I would be happy to share their pictures when this press conference is over. June and Siggy. Thanks, everyone.
Questions? Yes. 2 little grandchildren. Yes. Look, our goal is to get this done as quickly as possible, and we are working really, really hard. That's the bottom line. Yes.
Was that ever part of the calculus, though, when you got that top line out there, that a CR would have to be part of this? You announced this on Sunday, and there's just not enough time to process that by Friday.
Well, you know, the appropriators and their staffs are really good. We have real consensus among the 4 corners that they want to get something done. We're going to fight as hard as we can to get this done as soon as possible. Yes. You're next. Nope, he's first.
Should there be hearings down the road looking into how this situation was reported in terms of Secretary Austin's health?
That'll be up to the Armed Services Committee. Yes.
I was going to ask about that, but following up on the Ukraine and border security discussion, is there a world in which the immigration policy gets attached to the spending bill and Ukraine gets addressed separately?
Look, at the moment, we're working forward on both issues, and we want to get both of them passed. We'll figure out the best way to get both of them passed. Yes.
Hi. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like working with Speaker Johnson on getting this
Yeah.
deal? Because it was really your first.
He's a very decent, respectful guy, unlike some who want to be, you know, macho and bullying and threatening and all that. He's not like that, but he's in a very, very difficult position. Last one. I'm not going to speculate, as we said. We're going to work hard to get this done in as soon and quick a way as possible. Thank you.